How does a driver go faster through literally every single corner on a racetrack? I mean, push a Formula One car to the absolute limit of physical grip and somehow end up with a fundamentally slower lap time.
It sounds completely impossible.
Right, it belies basic physics. But picture the scene for a second. It's Saturday afternoon at Suzuka.
Yeah.
The sun is setting over the figure eight, and usually this is when the established titans of the sport just lay down their laps. You know, the natural order is restored. But today...
Today was an absolute earthquake.
A generational earthquake. Welcome to the DRS Zone Deep Dive, because we just watched the established Formula One order get turned completely upside down. The laws of racing physics are basically being rewritten in real time.
It was unreal to watch.
Completely unreal. And before we jump into the absolute madness of this session, I want to explicitly state, this segment is part of our news coverage of recent F1 events.
Absolutely.
We are analyzing an explosive stack of sources today. We got trackside telemetry, raw driver radio transcripts, immediate post-session interviews, the whole 9 yards.
And the data we have is just, well, it's staggering.
It really is. Our mission today is to unpack exactly how a 19-year-old rookie is just like dismantling the Mercedes hierarchy.
Piece by piece.
Exactly. And why the reigning titan, Max Verstappen, suffered a totally humiliating Q2 exit. Plus, what all these shocks reveal about these deeply controversial 2026 F1 regulations.
Because the energy in the paddock right now is electric, but it's this anxious, almost frantic kind of energy. The data we're looking at isn't just a list of who was fastest. It's a window into a highly technical change in how these machines actually operate now, and frankly, who is mentally wired to drive them.
You can literally see the panic in the telemetry traces.
You really can.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we absolutely have to start with the sheer, undeniable dominance of Kimi Antonelli.
19 years old.
19, his second consecutive pole position. And he didn't just edge out his Mercedes teammate, George Russell.
No, he obliterated him.
He beat Russell by a massive 0.298 seconds. And to put that into perspective for you, when you look at the timing screens, Antonelli's lap time in Q2,
which is wild on its own.
Right, the middle session where the track conditions aren't even at their peak. That time was actually faster than Russell's absolute best desperate effort in Q3.
And that is the statistic that should be keeping George Russell staring at the ceiling tonight. I mean, think about the physical reality of a racetrack for a second.
Yep, lay it up.
In Formula One, as the cars put rubber down on the asphalt, the track naturally grips up, right?
Right, the surface gets stickier.
Exactly. So mathematically, Q3 should always be faster than Q2 because the physical surface of the track is just inherently faster.
So for Antonelli's Q2 time to eclipse Russell's Q3 time in identical machinery,
it points to a staggering discrepancy in comfort. Just pure confidence in how they are interacting with the car's setup.
And comfort is the exact opposite of what Russell experienced today. I mean, his post-session interviews were just a nightmare to listen to.
He sounded so rattled.
He really did. He admitted to making and this is a direct quote, a tiny rear suspension adjustment going into qualifying.
Just a tiny tweak.
Yeah, and he said it completely transformed the car for the worse. He was slipping, sliding, fighting severe rear vibrations. He was dropping massive amounts of front wing angle just to try and balance out the oversteer.
Which is a desperate move.
Totally. But wait, stop right there for a second. I need you to break this down for me. Why would a so-called tiny suspension tweak utterly destroy a car driven by a veteran? Is Russell just, like, overthinking the engineering out of sheer panic?
Well, it's a combination of psychology and just the intense mechanical sensitivity of these 2026 cars.
Okay.
What's fascinating here is the psychological pressure cooker Russell is in right now. He is expected to be the undisputed team leader.
Right. He's currently leading the World Championship, 51 points to Antonelli's 47?
Exactly. He's waited years to be the main guy at Mercedes. And then this teenager sits down across the chessboard and just starts casually beating his baseline pace without even breaking a sweat.
Just smiling at him across the board.
Right. And when a veteran sees that, their instinct is to dive straight into the engineering to find some mechanical magic bullet, to reestablish dominance.
So he rolls the dice on a setup change.
He rolls the dice. But here is the how and why it backfired so spectacularly. The 2026 cars feature active aerodynamics.
Meaning the wings shift on the straights to reduce drag.
Yes. But in the corners, the aerodynamic platform is incredibly rigid. They rely so heavily on the mechanical grip of the suspension to keep the tires planted.
So if you mess with that,
If you make a tiny stiffening adjustment to the rear suspension like Russell did, you suddenly prevent the rear tires from actually biting into the asphalt under traction.
so the rear end just starts sliding everywhere.
Exactly. And to fix that oversteer, Russell had to take angle out of his front wing.
Which means less grip at the front.
Right. He essentially trapped himself in this vicious cycle of removing performance from the car just to keep the thing on the track.
That is brutal. Meanwhile, you watch Antonelli's onboard camera through the incredibly treacherous Casio triangle.
Oh, that chicane is brutal.
It's the tightest, meanest chicane. And his onboard is just pure, aggressive commitment, no corrections, just calm, cool, and devastatingly fast.
He looked like he was on rails.
He really did. And it sets up an unbelievable dynamic for tomorrow's race, especially when you look at the absolute animal starting right behind them.
Oh, the second row is terrifying.
Right. Oscar Piastri dragged his McLaren to P3, a massive feat considering he missed the first 2 races entirely.
Incredible drive from him.
And then Charles Leclerc wrestled his Ferrari to P4 with a spectacular, completely on the edge slide to the spoon curve.
Leclerc was driving absolutely on the ragged edge of physics today. I mean, he was demanding more mechanical grip than that Ferrari actually had to give.
He was literally sliding it like a rally car.
He was. It cost him a tiny bit of time on the long run down to 130R, but the sheer car control was breathtaking.
So having Piastri and Leclerc breathing down the necks of a Mercedes duo that is actively fracturing over car setup.
The run down to turn 1 is going to be incredibly volatile.
I can't wait. But listen, Russell's panic over the setup isn't happening in a vacuum. We are seeing this exact same technological disconnect over at Red Bull.
A total meltdown.
We have to transition from this fight for pole down into the absolute chaos of the midfield. Because Max Verstappen,
An absolute master of Suzuka.
the undisputed master of Suzuka in recent years, was eliminated in Q2. He qualified a dismal 11th.
It's almost unthinkable. I mean, if you had told anyone 12 months ago that Verstappen would miss Q3 at Suzuka purely on a lack of pace,
They would have laughed you right out of the paddock.
they really would have.
And the ultimate insult, the thing that really twists the knife here, is who actually knocked them out.
Oh, this is the best part.
Max was eliminated by 18-year-old rookie Arvid Lindblad, a kid who missed free practice 2 entirely yesterday because of a gearbox issue, jumped into his Racing Bulls car totally blind today, and somehow dragged it into Q3.
It's embarrassing for the main team.
And if that wasn't enough, Verstappen was also outqualified by his own teammate, Isaac Hadjar, for the very first time.
The dynamic there is shifting so fast.
It is. The radio transcripts and the post-session quotes from Max are just brutal. He's complaining about having zero grip, absolutely no balance, and these intense bouncing and shifting issues with the gearbox.
You didn't even need the audio, honestly.
No. His body language was screaming. He was visibly furious. He practically leaped out of the cockpit while the car was still swaying on its suspension in the garage.
The visual of him just ejecting himself from that car really tells the story of Red Bull's current season.
Totally.
We are seeing a complete breakdown of the synergy that made Verstappen seemingly invincible.
But where does the blame actually lie here? Because we know there's been a massive brain drain at Red Bull recently, right? Key engineering personnel leaving the team left and right.
Right. Massive turnover.
So at what point is this purely a mechanical car problem? And at what point has Max just, mentally checked out?
That's the million-dollar question.
Is he acting like a brilliant software developer who just realized his entire tech startup has quit, and now he's left dealing with a deeply buggy operating system totally alone?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at the mechanical reality of what made Verstappen so dominant in the previous era.
Okay, break that down.
For years, Max had this supernatural ability to drive around almost any aerodynamic flaw. He liked a car that was incredibly sharp on the nose, a really pointy car.
And very loose at the rear, right?
Exactly, very loose. He could balance it perfectly on a knife edge. But the 2026 regulations have fundamentally changed how these cars generate lap time.
How so?
They don't rely as heavily on overbody downforce that a driver can just manipulate with steering angle. The aerodynamic center of pressure is much, much more fixed now.
So his traditional driving style just doesn't translate to the physics of this new car.
Precisely. Max is asking the car to rotate in a way the 2026 aero platforms simply will not allow.
Wow.
So he feels zero grip because the car isn't responding to his inputs the way his muscle memory expects it to.
And what about those gearbox bouncing issues he was screaming about?
That comes down to the new power unit. The internal combustion engine and the massive 350 kilowatt electric motor have to perform this perfect, seamless handshake every single time the driver pulls the paddle to shift gears.
Okay.
If Max is aggressively throwing the car around and the rear tires lose even a fraction of traction during an upshift.
Which happens when you drive with a loose rear end.
Exactly. When that happens, that massive surge of electric torque causes the tires to slip, which violently bounces the rear suspension.
That makes so much sense. He's literally fighting the powertrain.
He is.
And now he's facing equal machinery with younger teammates, like HADJAR and the rookie Lindblad in the sister team.
Who don't have those ingrained habits.
Yeah. Right. They don't carry the baggage of how the car used to feel. They don't have a decade of muscle memory screaming at them that the car's behaving wrong.
Exactly. They just drive the car they actually have. Max's frustration with the new regulations is compounding his technical deficits.
It's downward spiral.
The car isn't doing what he wants, the engineering team isn't fixing it as fast as they used to, and that frustration is eating directly into his lap time.
But here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because Verstappen's vocal frustration is not an isolated incident.
Not at all.
It connects to a much wider, almost militant rebellion happening at the back of the grid with some of the most seasoned veterans in the sport.
The old guard is not happy.
They are miserable. Carlos Sainz qualified P16 in an overweight Williams, and Fernando Alonso is all the way down in P21 in a struggling Aston Martin. Why are the veterans so utterly miserable in these 2026 cars?
It comes down to the core DNA of the 2026 engine regulations. Specifically, a phenomenon the drivers are calling superclipping.
Superclipping.
Yes. To understand this, you have to understand the new power split. The sport introduced much smaller internal combustion engines. The V6s have far less power than they used to.
Right.
To make up for it, they placed a massive, unprecedented reliance on electrical deployment from the battery. The power output is now roughly a 50-50 split between gas and electric.
Okay, superclipping. This is where I need you to explain this to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Because Carlos Sainz shared this mind-bending piece of telemetry after he was knocked out.
The corner speeds, yeah.
He said he went faster through every single corner in Q2 than he did in Q1. He physically carried more miles per hour through the apex, but his lap time was slower.
Which sounds completely backwards.
In what universe does driving a car faster through a turn make your overall lap time slower? It defies basic racing logic.
It defies old racing logic, but it is the absolute mathematical reality of 2026. Here's the how behind the what.
Lay on me.
In the previous regulations, the cars had an MGUH. That was a motor that harvested electrical energy from the heat of the exhaust.
Okay, so it charged while you were just on the gas.
Exactly. But that is now totally banned. In 2026, the only way to charge the battery is through the MGUK, which recovers kinetic energy under heavy braking. Now think about Suzuka. Suzuka is a flowing, high-speed track with sweeping corners like the S's and 130R. You don't brake hard, you carry momentum.
Right, you're barely touching the brakes in the first sector. Okay, I'm tracking with you.
So if Sainz pushes the car to the absolute physical limit of grip in those high-speed corners, he is holding the throttle down and draining the battery.
Because he's not braking to recharge it.
Right. He goes faster in the turns, but because he didn't brake hard to recharge the system, the battery goes completely flat before he reaches the end of the next straight.
Oh, wow.
When the battery dies, the 350 kilowatt electric motor simply shuts off. That is super clipping.
So he just loses half his horsepower.
Instantly, Sainz is suddenly left with a tiny, underpowered V6 engine trying to push a heavy car down the straight. It feels like hitting a brick wall.
That is insane.
He went faster in the corners, but lost massive amounts of time on the straights because he literally ran out of electricity.
That is wild. Imagine trying to sprint a marathon, but you're only allowed to inhale when you're running downhill.
That's a great way to look at it.
If you sprint too hard on the flat sections, your lungs are completely empty for the next hill. You have to restrict your pace just to ensure you have the oxygen to finish the mile.
That is a brilliant analogy. Or think about your everyday life, you know? It's like having 5% battery left on your smartphone while you're lost in a city.
Oh, the worst feeling.
You know you need to use the GPS to get home, but using the GPS drains the battery faster.
Right, so you're turning the screen off, walking a block, turning it on quickly to check your heading, and turning it off again.
Exactly. You're intentionally handicapping your navigation just to make sure the phone doesn't die before you reach your front door. Right. That is exactly what these drivers are doing at 200 miles per hour.
And that brings us to Fernando Alonso, who offered a absolutely scathing, totally unfiltered critique of these new rules.
He was furious.
He claimed that the iconic, sweeping high-speed corners at Suzuka Corners that used to literally separate the men from the boys now require absolutely zero driver skill.
He really didn't hold back.
He said a team cook could drive the car through those sections now.
He called the high-speed sections charging stations.
Charging stations. I mean, what an insult to the architects of Suzuka. He said drivers literally just have to lift off the throttle in the middle of these legendary high-speed corners just to recharge the battery for the next straight.
It's a totally different sport now.
It is. Now, to be fair, Alonso did also plead for patience in a couple of months for Aston Martin to fix their specific aero and vibration issues.
Right, acknowledging their car isn't great anyway.
Which contrasts a bit with his harsh assessment of the overarching rules. But let me push back here.
Go for it.
Are Alonso and Sainz just complaining because their specific cars, the Aston Martin and the Williams, are just slow and overweight right now? Or is this a fundamental, fatal flaw in the 2026 Formula One DNA?
It's a tough question.
Because honestly, it sounds a bit like they're complaining that their beautiful mechanical analog wristwatches have been replaced by smartwatches, and they just don't want to learn how to navigate the new menus.
That is the exact tension dividing the paddock right now. From a purist perspective, the veterans are completely right to mourn the loss of traditional racing dynamics.
Sure.
For decades, being fast in Formula One meant carrying the absolute maximum momentum through a corner. You relied on instinct, bravery, and feeling the mechanical grip of the tire.
Driving by the seat of your pants.
Exactly. But the 2026 regulations require a highly unnatural, intensely mathematical driving style. It's an extreme version of lift and coast.
Yeah.
If you drive instinctively and push hard in a corner, the computer harshly penalizes you on the following straight. You are no longer driving the track, you are driving to an algorithm.
So it's a battle of processing power, both in the car's ECU and in the driver's head.
Precisely. And this is exactly why we are seeing this immense generational shift on the timing screens. Young drivers like Antonelli and Lindblad, they have grown up in hyper-advanced simulators.
We're playing the F1 games on maximum realism.
They have been managing complex, gamified hybrid systems their entire junior careers. They are adapting instantly because they don't have 20 years of analog muscle memory to unlearn.
They don't know any different.
They accept that the high-speed corner is now a mathematical charging station. They manage the battery perfectly without a second thought, and they extract the lap time.
Wow.
The veterans who rely on traditional momentum and pure, unadulterated racing instinct find this mathematical approach deeply, deeply frustrating.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We are watching a brutal, unforgiving changing of the guard. And it is being aggressively accelerated by a radical shift in technology.
It's survival of the fittest.
It really is. The 18 and 19-year-old rookies are thriving in cars that require algorithmic battery management and calculated restraint. Meanwhile, the established multi-world champions are visibly fighting the machinery, their setups, and their own deeply ingrained instincts.
It's an absolute clash of eras happening in real time at blistering speeds.
And you can connect this directly to your own life and your own career.
Absolutely, you can.
Think about the moment a radical new software or technology disrupts your industry or your workplace. When the rules of the game change overnight, how do you react?
It's a great question.
Do you complain that the old way was better, more pure, and required more actual skill, much like the frustrated F1 veterans?
Right.
Or do you instantly detach from your past success, analyze the new constraints, and adapt to the new system, just like these rungs are doing?
Because the trackside telemetry doesn't care about your nostalgia. It only cares about who can master the system in front of them today.
Survival of the most adaptable. If you can't learn the new software, you get left behind.
Exactly. But it also leaves us with a lingering, provocative question that goes far beyond just who wins tomorrow's race.
Let's hear it.
If the 2026 Formula One cars dictate exactly when a driver is allowed to push and when they must mathematically lift off to save energy, are we risking the soul of the sport?
Oof, That's heavy.
If this becomes purely an exercise in battery management software, will the purist racing fans migrate away from Formula One to lower-tier, fully mechanical racing series like IndyCar or the World Endurance Championship, just to see drivers actually pushing flat out again?
That is a massive risk for the FIA.
Or, conversely, is this algorithmic efficiency exactly what needs to happen to accelerate the electric vehicle technology in the road cars sitting in our own driveways?
Now, that is a thought that will stick with you the next time you watch them dive into Turn 1. Are we watching the absolute pinnacle of motorsport or just a high-speed R&D lab for our next commute?
The analog heroes versus the smartwatch generation?
Perfectly said. Thank you for joining us on this incredibly explosive deep dive into the Suzuka qualifying data. Make sure you follow our DRS Zone deep dives on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, so you never miss a moment of the action.
It's going to be a wild race tomorrow.
It's going to be unbelievable. We'll see you next time.